Welcome to our Primetime Alive program, Aging in Place, Tools to Keep You in Your Home. I'm Vicki Newell with the Mary Greeley Primetime Alive program. I want to remind everyone that if you want more information about Primetime Alive or to sign up for a program, please go to mgmc.org/PTA. So our presenter today is Gene Lilla. Gene is the manager of Mary Greeley Home Medical Equipment, and he is also a respiratory therapist and has over 30 years of home medical equipment experience. He has been a presenter at multiple conferences and events covering several topics related to home medical equipment. Please welcome Gene.
Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, great. So I really appreciate being able to come here and talk about this. This is something that is a little bit dear to me because my mother actually moved in with me about 2 years ago. So I went through a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm more than happy to help share that information with you guys. So the first slide I have up here just talks about aging in place and how most people define it. So they define it as remaining in a community-based dwelling, and that could be like a house or an apartment during one's later years in life. So what are the benefits of aging, or why does this matter? Well, it really gives people the ability to continue enjoying and doing what they want to do on their own terms. It improves satisfaction, quality of life, and people's self-esteem. And it also helps with independence, providing consistency and maintaining support and social connections. There's really 4 different components when you look at aging in place. First, you have your residence or your home where you're at and living, and then the social connections that you need, because we all need that psychological social connection with other people, right? It's never good to feel like you're alone or by yourself. And then also looking at things like transportation, right? Because for connections stuff, we have to be able sometimes to come places like here. So we have to be thinking about that as we're aging. And then, of course, looking at finances. And one of the things that they talk a lot about with aging in place is what they call the 40-70 rule. And if you haven't heard that, it's when the oldest child hits that age of 40 and the parent is at 70, you should have already started planning or have a pretty firm plan in place for aging. So you really want to look out a little bit further, because some of the things to help maintain you staying in your home can be kind of complex or maybe even expensive kind of projects to do. So thinking about those things ahead of time. So I'm going to really focus in on the home part of this. I'm talking about some of the modifications that are out there. I'm also going to then talk about equipment, and I'm going to talk a little bit about technology. And some of these things really bleed into each other. So some of the modifications, you're really going to be using some of the technology devices to improve the use of that modification. So when we're talking and thinking about home modifications, I always start with safety, right? Because if it's not safe, it's not going to do you any good. It's going to be an issue. And then we need to think about what's important to you. So what are the things that you want to do, what you want to continue to do? What are the things that you do every day, that you need to do every day? And do I have any limitations physically in that? Maybe you have a bad hip, a bad knee, something along that lines. Or you might have a chronic condition like, say, Parkinson's, so you know that things are going to change over time and you want to start planning for those things. And then we also want to think about, what resources do I have? And a lot of times when I bring up resources, people are always thinking the financial part of it, but I'm really not just talking about the financial part of it, because a lot of our resources that we have are friends and family and neighbors and people that can help with some of these things as well. So, because like I said, there is a cost to some things when we're talking about doing some of the modifications. So some of the more common things that you guys have probably heard or seen before are like ramps. And when I talk about ramps, a lot of people are thinking of the big ramps they see out in front of people's homes, which is a valid, useful thing, right? So we need to be able to get in and out of our house, especially if we're going to go to some type of event or something. But there's also a lot of homes that have uneven floors. They may have a step. So half their house is on one level, the other half is on another. And say that's a person that uses a wheelchair. They have to use that because they've got some lower body problem. There are actually ramps that are meant for that 1 foot or 6 inch transition. So they're a transition ramp. Because some people are worried, well, how do I get around in my wheelchair? Or how does my partner or spouse get around in my wheelchair, in the wheelchair when they're trying to get to the bathroom or whatever? So there are solutions to that. And most of these things I'm talking about right here that are common are things that could be a little bit more expensive. The next slide, I'll talk about things that are a little bit less expensive. Increased lighting is a big thing. As we age, our eyes can't absorb as much light, so things become darker. That's why it gets harder and harder to see when it's darker outside. And people nowadays, if they're planning far in advance, maybe building a new home or doing a major remodel, they'll actually get those motion detectors put in the light switches. So some of you may have seen those. So when a person walks in the room, they don't have to hit that light switch anymore. That light is going to turn on for them. So they'll be able to see a little bit easier. The wider doorways, that's something as well. When we think about mobility related equipment, which would be things like wheelchairs or even some of the walkers, like this walker that I have over here, it's got a pretty big footprint. So if you've got like a 28 or 30-inch door, something like that walker over there is a little bit harder maybe to navigate, especially if you need to turn it right away. So the standard for most of those doorways that you want to look at is at least 3 feet. And some places go out even wider than that, to say 3.5 feet. Lever handles are something that a lot of people don't think about. So every doorway that I'm seeing here pretty much has a lever doorway. So that's where you're just pushing down on it to open that doorway. Because as we age, or some people have issues with arthritis, it's harder to grip that doorknob and turn it, right? So you kind of want to get into a room, right? It's important to be able to get into your house and stuff. So a lot of people will transition to that style of handle on their doors. One of the things with my mother, like I said, she lives with me now, that we ran into, it has to do with these slide out drawers. So, because at times it might be a little bit harder for her to get down underneath the counter or to reach up high, or in my laundry room, the washer and dryer is set up a little bit high and the cabinets behind it that has the detergent. So it's hard for her to lift up and get that. So one of the first things we looked at is having like a slide out tray. So because she can grab the tray and pull it, and it's going to pull all the materials towards her so she can get to those. And that type of system with the slide out drawers or trays ranges greatly in pricing. So there's companies out there that will sell you like $2,000 kits to do some of that type of stuff. But there's also ones you can go down and buy, like say at Lowe's, that are much less expensive. So, but that is a very good thing to look at. It also really helps too when we're looking at an actual cabinet in a kitchen. Like I talked about, sometimes the lighting stuff is an issue. So it gets harder to get down and look in that bottom cabinet. And then when it's darker, it's harder to see your pot, your pan, whatever you have down there. But if you have that slide out drawer system, you can pull those out. It's easier to get to and it's easier to see. Another thing is the slip flooring. So when I talk about slip flooring, what I'm talking about are things like tiles and some of the linoleums and some of the stones. The LVP, luxury vinyl plank, some of that material can be very slick, especially if it gets a little wet. So when we talk about removing it, so some people will do that. They'll go to something like a low pile carpet, like what we have in here that gives you a little more tread, but doesn't interfere with any type of wheeled item. But what a lot of people will do is getting something like a non-slip mat. They'll put a low pile rug on it, so a low height rug on it, and then have something underneath it to help hold it in place and prevent it from moving. Then there's always the bathroom remodel. So if you guys watch TV at all, you probably heard all the bathroom places that are out there, right? So I just be careful with those. I had an issue with some water in my house. And as I was looking at stuff, I'm like, well, this shower is pretty old. I'd like to get it replaced. And I called 2 of the places that I saw, right? You know, and my mother's also like, you need to call such and such place because I see them advertised all the time. And it was like $25,000 just to put in a shower. And I was like, oh, well, my person that's doing the rest of the construction on the house quoted me like half of that, less than half of that. So, but do keep that in mind. I know when they were out and talking to me, their big thing was, but we can have it done in one day. And I'm like, well, I'm not living in the house till it's done. So if it takes a week and it saves me $10,000, that's what I'm going to do. So, and then another thing that we see a lot of times too is trying to move everything to one single level. Staying on that main floor so we're not having to worry about steps and going in and out. And there's also one thing I don't have on here too, but this is something that you see in a lot of newer homes when they're thinking about staying in the same home, is you'll see zero entry everything basically. So like even the front door, so that porch will be a sloped porch, concrete porch, going right to the threshold of the door with no transition strip. It will have what they call a sweep underneath the bottom of that door to prevent any drafts or anything from getting into it. But that's one less thing to trip on. So. And I really like that. Sometimes I take equipment into people's houses and we might be two of us carrying something backwards and I'm always worried about that transition. So when they don't have that, that's one less thing that I worry about. So some more common modifications that are less expensive. Some of these are when we talk about like the wider doors and the hallways and things like that. A lot of times if people declutter, so they start to get some of those things that they might have stored out in their hallway, maybe it's something decorative. You start to remove those things, you'll find that you have more space in that hallway. So unsecured throw rugs, like I talked about earlier about using non-slip mats, right? So they don't catch or we don't slip or trip on them. So, but putting in a secured, well, removing the unsecured one is what we want to do, that and tassels. So sometimes people will buy the carpets and they have the tassels on them and they may have it down on the floor. They've got some type of grip or attachment to the hard flooring, but then they've got these tassels out and people have come in because they've tripped on the tassels. Their foot got caught in it and then down you go. So power cords, items on floors, that's part of decluttering as well. So with the advance of so many electronic products, there seems to be cords everywhere. So you really want to look at getting rid of those, maybe putting them up. You'll see a lot of times now people will have like a plastic conduit or shell or holder for those power cords to keep them up off the floor and maybe possibly get them to a counter or maybe even having a separate outlet on there. And then like I talked about the non-slip rugs and mats. Another thing that doesn't cost you any money is making sure that we're putting the things that we use the most at the right height, right? So we don't want to put anything that's heavy above our head, okay? So not only is it because it's heavier to lift up there, but if that slips out of your grip, it's going to come down and it could hit you. And that's could be something that you don't want, right? You don't want something like a can to land on your head. So making sure that if it's something I'm using all the time, it needs to be really around that counter height level. So. And then I talked about the motion detector lights that are built into the light switches. Another thing that's much less expensive is to look at the plug-in ones that are motion detection. So I've got lots of those. A lot of them, when people had kids, they get them too. Plug them in there, make it easier. So, it's harder for us to see as we're aging. Now we're trying to do something in the dark, and now we're trying to find the outlet, and then, oops, I forgot I had a cord here, and then you're on the floor. So they're just a really great idea. And then there's just a whole myriad, tons of different types of toilet aids that are out there. And I put it as toilet aids, but really when we talk about bath aids, so grab bars, risers, safety frames. And I actually have a one type of grab bar here. So I guess since I manage the department, I can take it out of the box, show you it. But so this is what this one looks like. And this is a suction cup one. And so this is great when you're using it on a non-porous type of surface. And believe me, if I had a dent in my car out there and I were to put this on there and pop it tight, I can pull out that dent. That's how well they stick. But a lot of other grab bars out there are the type that you screw in. And a lot of times when people see those, I'm not saying you guys, but a lot of times people think about those only in the bathroom. But a lot of those larger grab bars that are primarily built for the bathroom can be used in different parts of the house. So say there's an uneven surface, you can get one of those screw-in ones and you can put it on the wall. So in my garage, there's one step to get into the house, but sometimes for my mother, that's too much. I've got a big grab bar that's this long and a little bit thicker that's mounted on that wall, so she can grab it every time. And I've also been out to other houses where they have it on both sides. And sometimes they'll have one on the inside as well, because you're always worried about trying to grab one of those bars as you're going down the step. And that's another tripping hazard. So really a dual use for those kinds. This type though, great for pulling out downs and going in the bathroom. So. Right. And then I don't think I have on there like some of these other items that I have in here. So what I've got is like a reacher. So these are things when we're talking about movement, you know, or losing our balance. So I'm sure everybody here has seen that reacher. So like little jaws. What a lot of people don't realize is there's a few things, different things on most of these reachers. So you have your two types of grips here. A lot of these here though, this little tip part that sticks out, it's not like a trigger like you're playing your little and shooting things, but it actually has a magnet in it. So you can pick stuff up. So if you were to drop like a nail or a screw or something along that lines, you can turn this over and then pick it up. So now it also works as like an assistant to what we call a dressing stick. So if you've got that sock or your pants or something and you're having a hard time leaning over, you can use that bottom end there, hook it and pull it up. So it's waist height or whatever height you want it, and then take it off of there. So.
You need probably a whole bunch of those in your house, don't you?
Well,
mean,
I'm telling you, I've been out to people's homes and seen, I thought they had a collection, so, yeah. Because believe me, there's all different types. There's ones that go from the side and both parts of the lever move. Yeah, there's different. So, big seller, I think like 15 or 20 years ago, somebody was selling them, you know, on TV and our commercials for all that kind of stuff. And I can't remember the brand name now, but yeah, there were tons of those. And then you've got a bath sponge, so just making it easier if you have, you know, shoulder issues, things of that nature. And then there's a lot of people, I'm sure everybody knows that this is a shoehorn, right? So unless you got a naughty kid, then you can, so I wouldn't do that. So I have chased one of my dogs around with one though. So I didn't swat him or anything, but I wasn't very happy at it at the time. So there are lots of different styles of this though too. So this is a plastic shaped one and it's kind of got a wider bill or bottom here. So it's really easy for some people to use this. They like that slope to it, but there's also a lot that are more of a straight, kind of a narrower one. And those ones are typically a metal one, which is longer. So if people are taller, they have more of the mobility issues with their hands and arms, those ones are a little bit more beneficial. So. And then there is what's called the sock aid too, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's an aid for your sock. So once again, it's that issue if you're having problems getting down and putting on your socks. So how this really works is the sock goes down here. So it's like a little trough. You pull it up partially, then you drop this on the floor, your foot rests here. And then there's these ropes here and you slowly pull it up and it should pull up the rest of the sock. So, and you're wondering, how does the sock stay on there? Well, that's a really good question. So it does have a like little grip here with a sticker that you can put on it. And there's some other ones here too that will sometimes have a clip to help hold that stocking in place. Now, if you need compression stocking, because a lot of people as we get older need something to help keep moving that fluid and the blood up our legs, there are stocking aids that are made specifically for that. And some are like a step-in style, depending on the compression that that person needs. So there's all different types of these though, just like with the reachers. Another thing that we've seen more people get into is this little item here, and I know it's probably hard for you guys to see, but what this is actually a little flashlight with a clip on it. So you can put it on a cane or a walker or something like that. Because some people, while they do have a lot of lighting outside the home, or inside the home, they won't have it outside. So they might have it by their door, by their garage, but they might have ways they have to walk. And sometimes we're worried about, is there something loose there or something on the ground that they're going to trip on? So this is one that you can clip on lots of different types of medical devices, so walkers, canes, wheelchairs, whatever, just for when you need it. So, right. So I know on one of these slides, I have more about equipment. I feel like I just talked about a fair amount of that. So, safety frames, that's something that we call, some of the equipment that goes around the toilet. Okay, so sometimes people need something to raise that toilet up, okay, because of a knee issue or a hip issue. But a safety frame is meant to give you a place for your arms to push up from. So say your toilet is the height that you need it, but you're having an issue because you got a bad knee or something, and you need to get up off that toilet. That's one of the items that you can use is this safety frame. So there's different types. Some will bolt onto the actual toilet bowl for that stability. And there's other ones that have like 4 legs that go around it. We'll actually also see for some people, it's easier for them to use a commode that goes over the toilet. So there's a thing that where you can get a bucket that actually doesn't have a bottom. It's called the splash guard. And that way you can move, because most commode legs are adjustable, you can move the height of that commode. And then that splash guard does exactly what it says. Make sure nothing splashes outside of it. But the great thing about those is the commodes that you can do that with is they're less involved. And if you have family coming over and you don't want that on the toilet, you can take that commode off and put it somewhere else, put it in the closet. Most of them fold up. You can put it away. So it's something that's less permanent, but gives you the same type of stability as the safety frames. And like I was talking about with the grab bars, you see that a lot of times too, in some of the homes where people put the grab bar across from the stool, the toilet, so they can grab it to pull themselves up if that's what they choose to do. Or some people will have it next to the toilet there. So there's lots of different types of shower chairs, bath chairs. Most of these things are related really to that safety once you're inside the tub or the shower. So, because some people, just for whatever reason, they can't stand as much or they're having some limited mobility issues. There's all different types. Like I said, though, there's some that extend outside of the tub that people can slide in on. So when we talk about a bench, that's usually for a lot of people, if you were to call and say, I need a shower bench, we're usually not thinking just the bench that doesn't have a back. We're thinking about something that goes over the edge of the tub to allow that person to sit down and then slide across and get in and get out of there. So, and then you also have things like, it's not up here, but non-flip materials that you can put in. Believe me, the shower salesman was telling me how great those were, but they put all that texture in the bottom of it. So, and it would have Microban in it. If you guys aren't familiar with Microban, and stuff like that. So, but it still wasn't worth $25,000 to me. So, we talked about the reachers, shoe handles, and dressing sticks there. There's a lot of different types of walkers. I'm not just, hey Vicki, I don't know what happened to that. Oh. That's okay though. So while we're figuring that out, there are lots of different types of walkers. And I could have brought out, I don't know, like 10 different kinds, but I brought out this style, which is an upright walker. And these were a big thing, like starting 2 or 3 years ago as well. You would have seen commercials all over the place for these, but they really take what's a standard wheeled walker and they're giving you these platforms. So platforms here, a spot for your arm to rest. Platforms really came from when people had a fracture maybe of something with their hand or their wrist and they needed a walker. Well, you couldn't hold on to the walker, right? Because you've got your broken hand. And that's where companies years ago developed, hey, let's put a platform on here. And then you could put a Velcro strap across here and use that to control it. So, but what they found is that if we put these on here, we change the brakes a little bit, people are going to use their walker more the way they should, which is walking into it and staying upright so they can see where they go. Because I'm sure you have all seen where people get in that habit of letting their walkers slide out in front of them, and then they're doing this thing and they can't see what's in front of them. And then when they do see something, it's a little bit too late and they've already hit it and then you're going over. So a lot of these walkers too, and I apologize because you guys probably can't see it, have larger wheels too. Okay, so larger wheels are better when you're on a rough non-secure kind of surface, a loose surface. So you think about gravel driveways, things like that. And even though on these ones, these are only about 8 inches, there are models out there that have like 10 and 12-inch front wheels on them. So, but this one also too, I apologize because every time I turn over there, the mic gets louder. But it does have a second set of handles down there, so the person can use it as more of the traditional walker. And then, of course, it's got the seat so people can sit in it. And then that's when these handles here that you could use, the lower handles, also allow you to push up off of them to get out of it. So now I'll be honest with you, compared to a lot of other walkers, when you fold this one up, it's a little bit bigger, right? So it folds pretty flat like this, but that's still a pretty good volume of space that it's taking it up. But it is relatively mobile for transportation compared to some of the other things that are out there. So I'll set that one over there. And I might as well show you this chair here after I covered it and everything else. So what I have here is what's called a transport chair. And so a transport chair is different than a wheelchair. The biggest difference between what we typically call a wheelchair and a transport chair is the size of the wheels. So, and not really the size of the wheels in the front, but the ones in the back, okay? What most people want a transport chair for is because it's lightweight. So it's something that's lighter and they usually fall on, you can fold them into a smaller space and get them in and out of the trunk or the car. This is a newer style. And I call it kind of the lawn chair, transport chairs, because this one folds front to back like this. It's not like that one where you saw me kind of pull it up in the center, side to side, it's front to back. So while it is a little bit taller than some of the other lift chairs out there, it's actually narrower and easier for people to get into a lot of trunks. This one as well, one thing that people really like about this is where the handles are. The handles are like this. We're not pushing like this, which is a little bit harder, right? It takes a little bit more strength and stuff. We can use this just like this, like we're pushing a shopping cart. So people really like that. And then the brakes are back here. They pull up, they lock. So
this is a substitute for a wheelchair in certain applications.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And we do have a fair amount of people that will get both because that wheelchair is better maybe when they're out going to the game or something, right? It's easier. Wheelchair has those bigger wheels too, right? So when you're going over the loose surface, the rough sidewalks, it's a little bit easier. But we're getting a person in and around the house and up the ramp, out shopping, people really like this style here. And there is the other type of transport chair that we have and a lot of places would have, looks exactly like a wheelchair with the exception of the smaller wheels. So, because on this one, we can raise the arms up and push them all the way back. So this one for some of our people that have issues getting up and out of their chair, maybe sliding over to something else, this is much easier. That's one of the big things that we've heard. Being able to lift this arm up just like that and swing out of it is great. And then it does have a footrest on it. It's down here that folds out. So that looks like that. And then a lot of you may have seen people around town or wherever as well with like a combination of this type of chair with a walker as well. So there's a brand we carry, they call them a duet. So it does two things. It's a walker and it's a chair. So but that one has a flip out footrest as well. So the person can use it as an actual transport chair and have somebody help move them around, and they can use it separately as the walker. So, and then, you know, I talked about the levers or levers on your door handles earlier. But we do see people getting, you can get little like rubberized grips that go on the door handles. And those make it a little bit easier for people to turn those door handles. So not only are they a little bit grippier, they're also usually a little bit bigger on there. All right, so now we can talk a little bit about technology. And really, I'm breaking this out into 4 different things that we can look at, which would be the smart home devices, appliances, wearable devices and smartphones. You can see my spell checked in, my little thing there on the end, where it says home devices twice. So thought I was doing such a good job. I put this together too. So smart home devices are what you're going to typically see referred to as like an Amazon device, an Alexa device, Google, Apple. One thing that pretty much all of these share in common is they're voice activated. Okay. And we can use these to control lighting. You can set all different types of reminders and schedules on them, whether it's for medication, whether it's for appointments. You can set the schedules for your lighting. So like say, you're usually gone, but maybe you're not in the trustiest neighborhood. And so you want those lights to come on every night at 8 p.m. so people think you're there. You can do that with these smart devices. And some of them will connect directly into your house system. A lot of them though do use Wi-Fi, and you might have to have a different type of light bulb, like a specific light bulb that's meant to connect to one of these systems. All of this stuff has really came down in price like over the last 5 or 10 years. If you would have bought some of these devices years ago, you would have paid twice as much as you would pay for these now. You can also get weather and emergency alerts on them. So in the middle of the night, I know my mother's of an age where she was always telling me, you got to have an emergency radio. And it's like, well, I don't know if I really need that now because my Alexa device, that's what I have at my house. It will tell me. It will say there, whatever type of weather, tornado spotted, 10 miles away, take cover. And it's loud when it comes on. One of the things I really use mine for, honestly, and I know I'm getting older now, but I will leave my phone places. And I'm like, where's my phone? How am I going to find my phone? So I'll say, Alexa, call my phone. And it will call my phone, and then I hear it ringing and that's really helped me out quite a few times. So, like, where is that phone? Half the time I have it on vibrate too, so I have to be really quiet. Tell the dogs to be quiet. So, yeah. One time I found it in my pocket. So, but that's something actually that my mother uses too, right? And when you think about the risk of people like falling in their home, to be able to say, Alexa, call whoever, and as long as that phone book is set up, you're going to be able to contact that person. And I would guarantee you, knowing the way things are moving forward with technology and what Amazon's really looking at doing, at capturing a market or creating an environment, keeping people in that environment, that you're going to see a lot more use of things like this that they're going to be doing. And that so Amazon has it set up so you can set up virtual physician visits. They're your pharmacy, they're everything. So they're really out there. And Apple's the same way. They know that long term there's a lot of sustainability financially for them to be involved in that kind of stuff. So and then video call and review. So video call is pretty self-explanatory, right? It means on some of these devices, if they have a screen, we can call somebody with that device and we can see them. We can feel like we're closer with them. It's not just talking on the phone or sending a text message or whatever, but we can actually see that person. And you can, usually do like group calls. So my brothers do that with my mom, I don't know, probably like once a month or so, because my other brothers live outside of Iowa. The review part, though, is also beneficial because it does allow for, on many of these devices, to actually look in on that person. So you can't get a hold of that person. They can call, they can call in if they're authorized user and open up that camera to look at that. So it's a way to be there but not be there in case of some type of emergency and stuff. So. And then smart appliances. So when I think about these things, I'm really thinking about, well, in my case, my mom used to leave the refrigerator door open all the time. And so I would get an alarm. It would tell me, oh, it's 68 degrees right now in your refrigerator, and it'd be beeping. And sometimes she might not hear it. So I'd be able to call her and let her know about that. But there's also a lot of things with a lot of the newer ovens and stoves out there where you can set these timers for everything to shut off. You can set them to start. You can set them if somebody manually sets it and doesn't put a stop on that, it can send you alerts and tell you, hey, you need to shut this off. And then you can shut it off usually either in person or with an app that you would have on your smartphone. So, and then of course, there's the little like Roomba vacuums that you can put out there. So, as people get older, sometimes it's harder to push some of those things around too, especially if you got stuff on the floor or a larger house. So you get just one of those programmable ones. So, and they work really great. So I love it when it chases the dogs around the house and they love it too. So, uh, my daughter had a cat and that was crazy because they, cat, I don't know what it thought, but it was try to bite it and chew it and scratch it up and everything. So, when we talk about wearable technology, you can see I've got my watch on here. And a lot of the things that are with the wearable technology are all going to be in common with smartphones. And so when I talk about staying in the home, what we're really looking at this point are things that are helping to keep us active and also keep us safe. So you can do some of the same things that we could do with the smart devices as far as reminders, but now you're also talking about having that activity tracking. So your doctor says, hey, you really need to be walking more. So you're able to track those things on your watch. And I can look at mine now and it would tell me, hey, you haven't walked far enough today. So, but that's really helpful. But then there's a lot of other health tracking, like on this type of watch that you would see. So it actually measures my oxygen levels. It measures like if I have sleep apnea and my sleep habits, and then heart rate, EKG. It does temperature. There's a lot of different things that we'll do with that. And that can be helpful information if you're going into the doctor and talking with them about some type of symptoms or some type of concern that you have. And all of this pretty much is going to link to a smartphone if you have a smartphone. Like you can see there, I talk about how it's got a lot of things in common with the smart home devices and the watches. So as far as reminders, you can put all your medications in a lot of the health apps and then it will give you alarms when you need to take them as reminders. You can also use it to track all those things I talked about, your heart rate, your EKG. You can do weight, you can do nutrition, you can do wellness, things that like there's depression questionnaires and stuff that are available on that. You can connect it with other devices and track your blood pressure, all that kind of information. So, that's helping to let your medical provider know how you're doing without always having to make as many trips back in, which is kind of device, because you can see that a lot of these devices, you can actually set them up to interface with your medical system, your medical record system. So like if your provider is using Epic, so like McFarland Clinic, Mary Greeley, a lot of the larger hospitals around here, you can set that up within your iPhone for that to connect and send that information via MyChart to your physician. So like say my doctor's like, oh, your blood pressure's too high, you need to measure it all the time. I say, great, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I wait 2 or 3 weeks before I go out and buy my blood pressure cuff. So I have to make up the numbers for 2 weeks for them. But anyway, so I've got one now that connects via Bluetooth. And what it does is it puts all that information in there. So now they can see it. And I was like, you drinking too much caffeine, Gene? I'm like, well, I like that espresso in the morning. So, but it is really good for that. And it also helps me, like, so with my mother and her condition, I need to make sure that she's walking a lot, not losing some of those type of skills and stuff. So I can cheat, look on her phone and tell me how many steps she's taken in a day. And I'm a little bit concerned about steps. So it will also track, not steps, sorry, but stairs. It will track stairs. So, why are you going up 2 or 3 floors today? What's going on there? Because you're not at the house. And where we're at now, waiting for the house to be done, there's no stairs there. So, and one of the things I forgot with that, it reminds me of her and walking and stuff, is that like specific to the iPhone, it will actually track some of your gait instability and your risk of fall as well. Say, hey, here's some things that you might want to look at or just at least be aware of. And then the smartphones really allow you to control a lot of these other devices that I was talking about. So like your smart appliances, your devices at your house, things like that. So I can be at work and if there's something at the house that I want the lights to come on or whatever, I can do that from there. I don't have to physically go there. I can check in on my mother if I need to do that. All right. So final tips and takeaways. So if we think about what we looked at the very, very beginning, I know it was a while ago, that aging in place matters, right? Because we're going to be happier and healthier, right? Be more involved. So there's several tools to use, and it's not too early to start planning. Remember that 40 to 70 rule that I talked about. And another thing I know from previous talks with us that have been a little bit longer is sometimes people get kind of overwhelmed with everything that's out there. They're like, oh, that's going to be so much. I need a stair lift kit. So I always encourage people to start simple. Start simple and start with the things that are the most important to you. Any questions?
And Jean, I'll use the microphone for questions here. I can go around.
Mine isn't really a question, but those smartwatches really do work. Several weeks ago, I was out at the gateway and I got a message on my phone. And I picked it up and it was from a friend of mine's daughter who lives in Washington, D.C. And she said, I've called several people. Do you know where my mother is? Because it says she has fallen at the Gateway Hotel. And I said, you are kidding me that you know this. And how did you find this out? And I said, yes, she did. And so then I filled her in on stuff. So I was just totally overwhelmed.
Yeah. And I forgot to specifically mention that, so I really appreciate you doing that. But yeah, like the Apple Watches do have that as well as crash detection. So if you get in an accident, it will alert.
And it does work because my daughter was moving her family from Texas to Iowa a couple months ago. And my husband and I were getting ready and knowing that my daughter was driving her van with the boys in it and my son-in-law was in the moving van. And we got a message that says this phone number was just in a car accident and we're, came across him and we're like going, oh my gosh, really, it worked out okay because we called her. She's like, yes, I was in an accident. I got on the interstate. Somebody rear-ended me. We're fine. But she hadn't even had a chance to get a hold of her husband. We had the message and we were able to call and check on her. And I tell you, that was even though it was very scary, it was very reassuring to know that. And I didn't even know that we had that on our phones. It must just be by virtue that either we're her emergency contact or we share location. I'm not sure what it is.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, Vicki, because that is one thing on a lot of the smart phones now. You can put in that emergency contact, you can put in your medical alerts and everything. So if you are in an accident and there's no one but you, and then the paramedics are there, they can access certain information from your phone. So like if you're diabetic, if you have allergies, they can get into that information if you have.
I think even if your phone is locked, isn't there some of that
Right.
information they can still get into?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I had a hip replacement and also had a fractured pelvis, so I've gone through a number of these things. I have a couple of things to add. If you put Christmas lights on your walker, everybody will stop and talk. It makes the people in the hospital so happy. So Stu did this thing with a battery thing, and I turned those things on, and everybody would stop and talk. Then we were helping a friend in and out of our home, and he had difficulty. We have 2 steps you have to go on. And so Stu has put handles on either side. And I mean, both of us, I think, even now that I use those all the time.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get him to go out that same door and he wanted to go front ways. But going downstairs backwards and then hanging onto the handles was so much more stable. So going downstairs backwards and having something to hang on to is so much more stable. Then the other thing is that I really couldn't use anything that had a sling seat. And so I thought maybe you'd have some suggestions for that.
Yeah, so are you talking specifically like on walkers or on wheelchairs or?
Wheelchair.
Okay, on a wheelchair. Yeah, so there are inserts that you can get that make that a solid surface. and you can pull them out of it. So that's especially important when you see people that may be sitting in chairs for a long time because they can start to get sores from that. So what happens when you get that type of skin sore is it's the heat not escaping the buildup of humidity, and that creates a really good environment for breakdown of skin and everything. But yeah, you can get inserts to put in there, and they're very easy to pull out. They don't take up a lot of space. And then you usually put some type of at least small cushion over them. Yep. Thank you.
Hi, Jean.
Well,
Can you speak to whether or not insurance covers any portion of this equipment, particularly something like that upright walker? And if insurance does, under what circumstances might it help cover?
okay. All right, yeah, so coverage of walkers, that's a really good question, Betsy, because like I shared, there's lots of different types of walkers, right? So when we look at, for instance, that walker that I have over there, depending on the person's condition and if it's medically necessary according to the insurance guidelines, and there's a prescription, then there's 4 pieces on that walker that we can bill. The first one being the wheeled walker component. And then the seat is a separately billable item by all insurances. And then actually each one of those arms is technically a platform attachment. And so that's actually 4 codes that you would bill that for. What we typically see though is when most people come in to get that, they have medical need for the walker and usually the seat, but not the arms. So then they would pay for the difference between the platform and the rest of the walker. So, and that's quite common because there are so many different styles of walkers out there. So sometimes people want some of the ones that are made out of carbon fiber, which is a very strong, lightweight material. I mean, much lighter than like aluminum and steel especially. But the cost of that is much higher than, say, one that's made out of steel or aluminum. So the companies can accept the insurance payment from Medicare specifically, and then the patient can pay the difference if they want that upgraded item, is what they call it.
And I could imagine there's a lot of instances where the platform for your arms aren't considered medically necessary, but yet may be beneficial for the patient.
Right, right. Yeah, so for insurance to cover it, it has to meet their definition of medical necessity. So, and that can be frustrating for people when they want to come in and get stuff, and frustrating for us because we can see the real need for it, and also frustrating for the medical provider or the physician. And that, so, but yeah, people really, a lot of people that they'll come in and they'll try one of those and they're like, I don't like the other one. I don't want the other one. This is more comfortable for me. Keeps me standing up. It's better for me. And we don't disagree with them because we think they're correct, probably 99% of the time. But yeah, for Medicare, that's an upgrade. You don't have a broken wrist or whatever, so you don't technically need the platform.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a question, and I apologize if I missed it. Did you talk about anything about medication management? I know you said on Alexa, but my mom had this system that had a timer on it. It would turn, and when it was time for her lunch, it would turn and it would buzz until she would go grab her medication.
Yeah, so that's a good question about medication reminders. So we don't have those, but you can get them. Most of the time, what I've seen is they're not covered by insurance. But you do see a lot of home health agencies sometimes that will do that. And certainly it's beneficial to have that because, you know, as we age, we take more and more medication, and it's easier to get some of those, you know, either mislabeled or the wrong spot, taken at the wrong time. And some of those can really interfere with your thinking process once you've done that. And then it just cascades on, it becomes bigger and bigger. So yeah, there are lots of products out there that will do that. I believe some pharmacies actually stock some of those as well for people to purchase. But yeah. And then there are pharmacies too that do that packing. So they'll say, okay, these are all the meds you take at 10 o'clock. So we're just going to put them in a packet together. And then it comes in a box with a lid, and you just pull them out, tear it off. And then there's your medication for that time. So, but yeah.
And I'll get there, but while I'm walking back there, so yes, Gene is with our Mary Greeley Home Medical Equipment, but I think as you've heard him say, we're not the only providers in town. There's other companies that have home medical equipment, so we're not telling you where you have to go, what you have to do, but this is just kind of typically what might be available and options for you and, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about that, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the reason I'm at Mary Greeley is because we're doing the right thing for people. And it's not a big deal to me where people get stuff as long as they're getting it, as long as they're taken care of. So, and I wouldn't be there if I didn't agree with that vision for the medical center. So that's a huge thing to me. So,
Seems like there's lots of different things of the fall button that so many people wear. We looked into it about 2 years ago and it seemed like there wasn't any place in Ames that had that. Is that, what do you look for in a fall button and where should you go to get one?
yeah, my opinion on that, I was actually reading something about this, I think it was last night. And I wasn't specifically looking for that. I was looking at cell phones and cell phone plans. And I found out that a lot of those lifeline services and other things like that, that we're so familiar with, have been bought by cell phone companies. So I know that I think Verizon bought Lifeline. So a lot of those now are cell-based because they don't have the landline anymore. So I'm not as familiar with those. I know that like our home health used to carry those and then I think they just saw changes. And I do know there's like independent salespeople, I believe, that go out and go to certain conferences or events and, market that kind of stuff. But I haven't seen anything honestly for probably 2 or 3 years about it until I was reading that last night about that. And I think part of that, you have to measure or weigh the cost of that to a manufacturer compared to them knowing here comes Apple and here comes Google and here comes Amazon with all this other wearable technology. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we did have one for my mom and I just looked, because we used to have Lifeline at Mary Greeley. I just went online and started comparing and tried to talk to people and find out, but and I know that my mother's they have different options too, where hers, it could have been where if she'd fall, she could push the button to say she needed help, but we paid extra to have the fall detection. So that if she fell suddenly and maybe bumped her head and couldn't notify, they would still be notified. But I believe, as Jean said, there is so much of that wearable technology now. But then, of course, a lot of times you have a monthly subscription to, there's things, but that peace of mind is definitely. And I'm with you. I don't hear much even online anymore, or even on TV or anything, talking about, a Lifeline or Life Alert or whatever. Yeah, is anybody here aware of a company or could recommend one that somebody else has used? It's always a good way too to ask different people and find out what they've used, but I don't know.
Check with your insurance company. Some insurance covers them. Check with your insurance company. The one I had 2 years ago covered it. The one I got now, I'm paying for it myself. But it works. I fell here in Ames. My daughter lives in Nevada and she was at the emergency room waiting for me when I got there.
So when you're done, would you mind sharing with her which one you use so all right.
I just wanted to add that VFW has equipment available for loan. They used, I think there was somebody on the north side of town that collected a lot of things in her garage and made that available. And eventually, possibly that ended up at VFW. I don't know. But we have borrowed simple things from them and they don't charge you and you just clean it and take it back when you're done.
I know the Legion used to have one. I don't know if they do anymore. Where is the VFW? I don't.
Downtown.
Same. Sure.
Oh, it's the
But
thing,
same
the
thing.
Legion. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I was like, do you know, Jean, if that's
Well,
still?
so I've heard different things on that. I know they were doing that for a while, and then I heard they were stopping it, and then somebody else that came in and said, oh yeah, I called down there and they said they probably did, and to come after 4 p.m. because that's when they were opening that day or whatever. And so I guess I've heard a few different things. So the best thing would be to, reach out to them. So.
Other questions? And while Betsy's asking her question, I'm gonna look and see if there's any online.
I think I missed something when you were talking about decluttering of all those electrical cords.
Uh-huh.
And if there were a Guinness Book of World Records for having the most cluttered cords, my husband would be the poster child. So, yeah, he's somebody that probably would be at risk for falling. So I didn't catch, like if I'm vacuuming in the basement, there are cords all over the place. What can be done to get those up out of the way? I missed what you said.
Yeah, so I don't know, well, so two different things with that. So what I had talked about is there is stuff that is like an electrical conduit, but it's like a plastic square that you can use to put that stuff up on the wall. So you see that a lot. I guarantee it's behind that TV there, that type of system, except they probably have the electrical cord running up in the wall. But there are surface mount things you can do. When I talk to oxygen patients that are at a high risk for fall, what we talk about is command hooks. And so command hooks are a 3M product. And what that is it doesn't leave any film supposedly when you remove it. But you can get hooks that are the size to hold like cables for TVs, and you can put that on the wall, or you can get larger hooks and ones, in fact, that actually clip over the top. So you can go to like Walmart or Target and look for those kind of products. But, you know, when we go out and see oxygen patients, some of those people are at high risk for fall, and they'll have, you know, as much tubing as they need to get around their house. And then it does become a tripping hazard. So we'll usually recommend that to them. So they don't need to go to be, you know, put in some type of conduit material on the wall. Usually in that kind of situation, those command hooks work for them, help keep them off the wall or off the floor.
If my ignorance, but what do you mean when you say conduit?
So just like a cover. think
Kind
it
of
as
like a
cover.
tubing that you would run through, right?
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
it would attach to the wall,
Okay.
or you even see sometimes, maybe Tim and AV would help you, because even like he works with a lot of cords, and sometimes when they put them down, then they kind of have a threshold that they can put over it. So even if it is going on the floor, it's all together, at least it's not all these separate cords. So maybe you should talk to
Yeah.
him. He might,
What
oh,
we-
Tim, are you
what we
on?
use- Yes, I just got back. So what I use works on carpet, and it's basically a giant Velcro strip. And if you have a short pile carpet, it doesn't work on long pile. But if you have short pile carpet like what we have in our conference rooms, it will stick down the cables really nicely. So that's
Tim
what
is
we
our
use.
media- Tim's our media specialist at Mary Greeley, so he's always helping me, making sure I can do this virtually and that sounds coming through and pictures. So thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
I do not see anybody online has a question. Anybody else here have a question? I'm sure it's, oh, here we go.
When you talked about the different, like smartwatches and phones and whatever, all the different things that can connect and apps and stuff. It seemed to be that you referred always to us, like an Apple phone or whatever. It does things work with the Android phone too?
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, you're probably right. I kind of picked up on that as I was talking about. I'm talking about what I'm wearing and what I have. But this Android being the largest competitor to Apple, they have several products that will do that. And then there's a lot of third-party apps that you can kind of combine products together. So,
Yeah, that's just it. I don't know that you have to have a watch from Apple to be able to have your watch interact with your phone, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then some of those products, like my watch is a Wi-Fi watch, okay? But you can get one that has the cell modem in it and use it independently of any type of phone even. And that, so there, and I'm sure Samsung has that ability as well. So,
I think I saw somebody else raise their hand. No? All right. All right. Well, Jean, thank you so much. And I'm assuming you can stay around a few minutes if people want to come up and look or have some other questions. So if you want to do that. And then I just want to remind everybody, please fill out your evaluations and give us ideas you might have for other programs or presenters. And then want to also let you know, I think our program's this Friday on the Tai Chi Quan it's basically modified Tai Chi to help with balance and reduce falls. Those classes are both full as of right now at Mary Greeley. Our next time we'll be here is Wednesday, October 8th. It will be 2 to 4 p.m. It's a little bit different. It is called Pit Stop for Health. Tune up before your, I gotta put my glasses on. I thought I could do it. Tune up before winter hits. And so our Nursing Safety Council is putting this on, and they're gonna have about 12 or 14 booths on anything from vaccines to online safety to winter safety, lots of different areas that you can go around and check and get some great information. They're so excited to do this. So I hope you can come out and join us. And then our next program will be Wednesday, October 15th. So you got to watch carefully because this one's going to be back at Mary Greeley in Myers Auditorium. It's never too late moving toward a healthier you. So Brenda Baker, who is our manager up at our Lifetime Fitness Center, is going to talk about, if it's been a while or you want to pick up your fitness game, how can you do it and what could you be doing? So hope you can join us. Thank you again, Jean, and everybody enjoy this. Oh, yes, question.
Speak to the programs that are going to be the next couple of days, or into this week on campus.
Yep, so I didn't address the one on campus. The ones on Friday I addressed, that's where they're doing the demonstration of the Tai Chi Quan. Those are both full right now. We can only take 30. Thursday night is, and I don't have this exactly down, but a big nationally recognized gentleman who is a Pease Family Scholar, I believe, through Iowa State, and he's the head of Oregon. Oh gosh, I told somebody. Anyway, he knows a lot about preventing falls. How about that? Dr. Lee is his name. And he is going to speak Thursday night on different ways to, I think it might be geared more towards those people who are assist older adults and helping prevent falls. But I think you'd probably still get good information out of it about different interventions you can have to help reduce people's risk of fall and ways to increase balance. And then one of those ways is this Tai Chi Quan that he has developed. And he's going to do those demonstrations at Mary Greeley for us Friday morning and Friday afternoon. Yes.
Could you speak to the one that's going to be in the union where we should park and?
Oh, I don't, I have, the one Thursday evening is at the Memorial Union, and when you signed up, it had the room number. I don't have anything more than that. I don't know about parking. I was just at the Union and I parked in the ramp, and I think they're pretty good about labeling what's on what floors before you get out. I'm sorry, I don't have any more information about that. All right. Yeah, all right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.